You know how teens are always saying?
You know how teens are always saying?
You know how teens are always saying?
Drugs and alcohol are no big deal.
That drugs and alcohol are no big deal.
Drugs and alcohol are no big deal.
I'm Brianna, I'm 16 and I'm in 11th grade. I've never done drugs, I've never thought about doing drugs, and I don't believe I ever will, because growing up the way I did, watching my parents and some of my family members go through the drugs, I would never wish or imagine on my worst enemy for anybody to have to go through what I did. I was about 13 or 14, and we were living in Tennessee because my dad had been on the run for 5 years. And the U.S. Marshals came to our house, and my dad was in the back room, and they told my mom to stop moving before she kept trying to get to my dad. And the U.S. Marshals held a gun to my mom, and they hit it with her whenever he held it to her. And whenever it was all said and done, when they opened the door to go into the back to get my dad was laying on the floor with a puddle of blood around him from where he had took a samurai sword and tried to stab himself in the throat so he wouldn't have to go to prison. And I got to watch them pick my dad up with a towel and hold it to his neck while they was dragging him by his feet out the door. He'd been on drugs since he was a teenager, and it was mostly like Xanaxes was his favorite, and he'd just get stupid and he'd go and steal. I grew up not being able to be like a kid. I had to take care of my mom, my dad, and my sister most of all. And I've been in and out of mom and dad's house and out of Green's house because we've got taken away from social services basically our whole life. And I basically grew up without a mom and a dad because my dad sometimes would be so out of his mind that he wouldn't even recognize that we was there. Drugs are terrible, that they can ruin your life, and they've ruined mine in so many different ways to where I don't remember having a childhood. My mom and dad, they're still on the run to this day, and I know that the U.S. Marshals are going to come and find them again, and I have one of my greatest fears is when they come that he's going to kill himself and he's going to make sure it goes through this time.
I'm Aspen, and I'm 16, and I'm in the 9th grade. When I was really little, my mom started using heavy loads of different kinds of, pills and, very bad drugs for you. And it escalated very badly with her trying to hurt me a lot. She tried to stab me one time because she was very, very high off of very bad stuff, and it escalated as I got older. So one time I was at her house and it was going really great. It was a good day with my mom until she was in the bathroom for a really long time, and then she came out. She started yelling at me, cussing at me, telling me that she didn't want me to be alive, that I was a mistake. So the reason that I'm following in her footsteps is because everything she did to me when I was younger, it gave me a lot of anxiety, and I have PTSD from it. So I thought, being high or really tipsy and drunk all the time would, ease me from thinking about everything that's happened. But in the end, it all comes at you, and it really hits you because you don't really think about it when you're high. You just think about laughing and having fun. But then whenever you're done having fun, it's not really so fun anymore.
When I first had to take on the responsibilities of my little sister, I was 11 years old. But when I started taking on responsibilities for myself, I was 7. I'm Kylie, I am 17 years old and I'm in 11th grade. My story starts when I'm around 5 years old. Before my mom met my sister's dad, she was a CNA and she did home health, and she was a really good parent. They got together when I was around 5 years old, and she got addicted by the time I was 7. And so I was 7 years old, having to get up for school by myself, set my own alarm clocks, fix my own breakfast, and things like that. And it escalated from there, and it just progressively got worse. She had my sister when I was 11 years old, and the day that they brought my sister home from the hospital, they left her with me, and they went on a week-long drug binge. I didn't get to go to school because my mom was out with her fiance having fun, and I was at home with a newborn. I was 13 years old, and I got off the bus to come home from school. My sister was 2 years old at the time, and I walk into the house, and my sister was in the living room by herself, and I couldn't find my mom, so I picked my sister up and I put her in her room with her toys so I can go find where her mom is. I walk into her bedroom, and I thought she was asleep at first. I couldn't wake her up. She was unresponsive. I couldn't really tell if she was breathing, and it turns out that her heart rate was like dropping so fast that you couldn't feel a pulse hardly. And keep in mind, I'm 13 years old, so I'm not really sure what's going on, And once again, I got left with a 2-year-old trying to explain to her that her mom's going to the hospital, and that she's sick, and I just had a lot of responsibilities put on me because of drugs. I have experimented with pot and pills and alcohol. The lowest point that I've ever been at was I'm very depressed. I struggle with depression and anxiety on a daily basis. I used, and I thought that I was just going to end it all. And so I got saved up pills for weeks at a time, and I had a really bad day, and I came home and I took them all. My mom had left, and I didn't know that, and she left my sister there, and I didn't know that either. And I had taken the pills, and I was laying there, and I was really sleepy, and I was sick, and I was thinking, this is going to be it. And then I heard my sister start crying in the other room. And I waited, and she just kept doing it, and I had to force myself to get up to go take care of her. And trying to do that while messed up on so many pills was absolutely terrifying, because not only was it my life, but it was hers too. And my baby sister is what made me stop and straighten my life up. I was 15, so she was 4.
At first, I didn't really think about what happened because, I'm guessing it was because I was so drunk, but after a while, a couple months later, I started realizing exactly what went down, and I remembered being there in my own body, and that kind of was the feeling that took over. I'm Nick, 15 years old. I'm in 10th grade. I've experimented with a lot of alcohol, weed, just kind of the basic like acid, shrooms. On May 31st, 2018, I had the accident. So when I was 14, I was drinking with a couple of my friends, and it was getting late and we were getting bored, and my friend texted me and said, "Hey, what are you doing? I got weed, you should come pick me up." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I stole my mom's car and went out to go pick him up, and then we went somewhere, a designated spot to go smoke at. And then after we smoked, the car broke down, and so I thought it was a good idea to push it home, even though it was already on a incline kind of. So we started pushing it home, and So we were young, we were 14, and we were thinking, okay, it's gonna take the two of us to push this home. So nobody was sitting in the car, nobody was sitting in the front, the driver's seat of the car. So we start pushing it, and it kind of goes off the course that we want it to, and it starts going towards the ditch. And so my drunk mind was thinking, oh, okay, I'm gonna jump in front of it and try to stop the car. So long story short, I got ran over, and it took my ear off and blacked out. Woke up in the hospital pretty much. I was in a lot of shock, and I was still drunk and not thinking. My friend told me, hey man, your ear's dangling off your head, and I was like, oh really? And I thought it was funny. I started laughing, and so I feel for it, and I grab it and just rip it off and throw it away into the weeds without thinking. And now my ear is right here. Unfortunately, it lost too much blood and it didn't work. I would just tell people not to listen to everything everybody else says, because they're just trying to get you in the same kind of mess that they're in. And they don't want to be alone in the problems they got.
My message to anyone who thinks about using is that it's not worth it. You know, you'll have people saying just one time and it'll be fun and you can get past it, and that's not the case. Like I said, I watched my mom go from a model parent, a CNA and a nurse, to someone who can't hardly get up unless they have drugs to motivate them to do it. It's not worth risking your life for.
So maybe sometimes drugs and alcohol can be a big deal.
So I guess drugs and alcohol are a big deal, especially when you're a small child.
So I guess drugs and alcohol are really a big deal.
I guess drugs and alcohol really are a big deal.